Hey everyone, I'm at the Woodchute Wilderness in between Prescott, Arizona and Jerome, Arizona. And I'm just doing a quick overnight trip, kind of spur of the moment. I'm going to go down the Woodchute Trail 102 and then I'm going to find somewhere to camp. It's going to get dark in the next 3 hours here. And I think tomorrow I'm going to do a loop down into some canyons. So anyway, let's get on the trail and I'll explain more in a minute. Yeah, so as I mentioned, this is a very spur-of-the-moment overnight trip. Tonight I'm going in only about 4, maybe 5 miles to the top of Woodchute Mountain where I plan to camp. And Woodchute Mountain overlooks the town of Jerome, Arizona. Hopefully I'll be overlooking that town and should have a nice view tonight. So the Woodchute Wilderness is actually very small. I think it's only about 5,300 acres. Compared to my regular stomping ground, the Superstition Wilderness, which is about 160,000 acres. So it's very small. There's not a ton of trails out here. This is pretty much the only main backpacking loop that I'm aware of out here. Just a shot of the view, not even a quarter mile into the trail. You have a nice view of the Red Rock Secret Wilderness. That's actually the wilderness surrounding Sedona, Arizona out there. Okay, so I'm thinking it's one of these canyons to my left that I'm going to be coming up tomorrow. Almost positive that I'll be coming up this canyon here. And out that way is kind of the Prescott, Arizona area. It's really the only way I can describe this part of Arizona is it's not really what I would call desert. It's more of a chaparral scrub. Okay, that's the area where the pass is, I believe, probably around where I'll be camping. It is super windy today, so no chance in hell I'm having a fire tonight, but that's fine by me. It's a little bit warm out here. I think it's in the 80s, and I think the low is going to be like 61, maybe 59 at the lowest. All right, I think that we're going to climb this mountain in front of us here. I think that's Woodchute Mountain. So at this point I have a pretty good view of the San Francisco peaks. Those mountains way out there. Yeah. All right, we are definitely climbing up that. That's interesting. I thought I was already in the Woodchute Wilderness, but there is a sign right here. I've already been hiking for a couple miles, so that's strange. I am probably less than a mile from where I'm going to camp. Here's our junction. So I'm going to take Woodchute Trail number 102 that way. And then tomorrow I'm going to come back down this and I'm going to take Rick Tank Cutoff, and I think I'm going to meet up with Martin Canyon Trail 103 as well, and that's going to complete the loop tomorrow. And I don't know what this is right here. All right, so I'm going to climb up to the top of Woodchute Mountain, find a place to camp up there. I'm carrying all my water for this trip. There are no real flowing water sources out here that I'm aware of, but there are some stock tanks that apparently are pretty nasty. Yeah, I think I'm getting close to 8,000 feet elevation. There's my water source down there. I'm sure it'll look all muddy and nasty once I get down there tomorrow, but if it's not, then I'll use it. I hope I'm near the top because it's going to be dark in about an hour. All right, I made it to the top, and it's actually a lot more densely forested up here than I thought it would be. So I think there is a spur trail that goes right to the edge of the mountain, and I think I'm gonna try to keep going over to that and see if I can find a campsite over there just to have a nice view. I just stumbled across some deer. What the heck? There's like somebody's grave. I was expecting wide open pinyon juniper forest with nice flat ground and sand, and what I'm actually in is ponderosa pine forest, and it's really rocky. Every time I think I come across a good place to set down my tent, it's just like boulders and sharp rocks. So because it's gonna get dark soon, I can't keep going, so I really can't find anywhere to set down. And honestly, I just got really creeped out finding somebody's grave out here. So I'm actually gonna go back down to the trail junction and camp at the actual campsite down by that water source. That way, if I want to, I can even have a fire. I probably won't still, just because it sounds like a lot of work right now. But anyway, I'm gonna hightail it down to the bottom and set up my camp. Well, things don't always turn out like you plan, but that's okay. That's what I just ran down. It's almost night. All right, I found a place to camp. It's not an actual campsite. I actually had to clear an area off to find a place to camp. For some reason, I thought there was a campsite below by the trail junction. Turns out there was just a trail junction there. I don't know, maybe the altitude's playing tricks with my head. Anyway, yeah, I actually continued off and walked about another quarter mile past the trail junction. So I'm actually on the hike of where I was going to be tomorrow. So I guess that's the good news. It took a while to set up this campsite just because of all the rocks and everything. This area is kind of interesting because there's really no campsites to speak of as far as I've seen so far. I know further down this canyon that I'm going to descend tomorrow, there should be some campsites, but that didn't really help me because the sun was going down too quick. So I set up here instead. But anyway, I'm going to call it a night. So see you guys tomorrow. Well, good morning. I slept pretty good last night, though I was a little bit cold. I actually decided to try out that Sea to Summit fleece liner again as in place of a sleeping bag. Turns out it's just not quite warm enough for my needs. I had all my clothes on and a down jacket on, and I was still a little cold at night. So I think I'm just going to be using a quilt with the toe box open in the future, even in summertime. So anyway, the plan for today is to head down this canyon that's just behind us here. go down to the bottom, and then that connects to Martin Canyon, and that'll take us back up and kind of complete the loop around. So yeah, here's that Sea to Summit fleece sleeping bag liner that I've been trying to use as a standalone summer bag. And you can see it's just thin fleece. I showed it on a video before. I think I did a Superstition Mountains video in May, and that's the first time I used it. And I've used this a total of 3 times now as a standalone bag. And every time I've used it, it's just been too cold. I had to end up putting on all my clothes and a down jacket on in the middle of the night. And last night it got to maybe 58, 59 outside out here, and it still was just too cold for me. So maybe I'm just a cold sleeper. Warm sleepers might have better luck with it, but I think I'm just going to keep it as a extra layer if I go below like 10 degrees with my winter quilt. So, you know, it was something I tried out, but I'm still going to keep it. It's still going to have its utility, I'm sure. And since I'm here, you may or may not have noticed that my backpack is actually suspended off the ground next to my tent. And you might be wondering how I do that, since I actually had to learn this from another YouTuber. This is doable only with trekking pole tents as far as I'm aware, so non-freestanding type tents. So you see I have my trekking pole there. Yes, I do use trekking poles, I just don't use them on camera. Anyway, so you see at the top, this is kind of hard to film. You see the loop of the trekking pole, I wedged a little stick in there. And then what I did is I took the backpack's load lifter and I looped it through that stick, and it holds the empty backpack up just fine off the ground, keeping bugs out of it and keeping it dry and such. I'm not exactly sure how far down into this canyon that we're going. Pretty far, I think, though. So as you can see, it's kind of a steep trail down to the bottom here. Just a shot of the trail where I came from. And this is the canyon that I'm descending into. Well, it's probably a good thing that I camped where I did last night, because I would have had to descend this canyon in the dark yesterday. There's no campsites as far as I know up here. It's interesting foliage out here. It keeps switching from pinyon juniper, kind of chaparral shrub areas back into ponderosa pine country. And I kind of like that because you get to experience kind of the wide open views as well as the shade of the forest. Big old fungi in this tree. Okay, I believe I am exiting the wilderness now. So once I go down here, I think I'm shortly going to come to my trail junction, and then I'm going to be going up this other canyon that's up here and to the left, kind of. And from that point, I think it's a jeep road at the top. All right, so I've reached my trail junction. 104 is where I came from. And this Jeep road would take you into the Prescott area, I believe. And I am gonna follow this Jeep road up into the mountains here. In Arizona, you don't always have your choice of hiking a trail on these wilderness areas. A lot of them are pretty undeveloped, and sometimes Jeep roads are what you have to do to complete a loop. All right, well, it looks like that Martin Canyon houses all the campsites in this wilderness. Little firing, and actually some flat ground that you can set up on, but looks like it doesn't get used very often. And again, here's another campsite. And again, it looks like these don't ever get used. This firing has long since been grown over. Just about to the top. Man, oh man, is that ever a lot of uphill. Here's a nice, delicious pool of chocolate milk for you. Definitely some ATV traffic nearby. Okay, I just got passed by no less than 5 ATVs on their way down. So I was wrong. It keeps going uphill. It just climbs and climbs and climbs. Whew. Finally to this junction, 9710W. So I'm gonna go that way. All right, I'm getting close to the trailhead to my car. I'm just doing my little last bit of road walking back to the car. And I probably wouldn't come back on this road. I would definitely do the Woodchute Trail again,